Hi, welcome to GBrush. Here we are going to use GBrush for the first time, and as you can see I'm using GBrush 2018. In this video I'm going to show you the interface briefly. When you open GBrush you will see something like this, and on top here you can see this is the home page. We don't need this, just close this option, or you can click on this settings icon and you can choose show if new updated. So in this case I'm just closing this, and this is my GBrush interface here. And here you can see the light box is opened by default. When you open GBrush it's opened, so click on this little light box icon to collapse it. And on this center you can see, in this center, this is called canvas, and this is actually our working area and also called documents. So we are going to work in this area. Then we just collapse the light box. So light box is basically a library of GBrush. You can see some by default objects model. You can start from those. Let's say you are creating a character, you can start from this guy. So you can use these things like that, and there are some brushes, textures, alphas, lot of things here. So let's click on to collapse it. So on top of GBrush you can see there are different palettes. These are called palettes, and inside a palette you can see there are so many options or sub palettes. These are sub palettes, and inside that there are options, tools. Okay, so these are palettes. These are arranged alphabetically. You can see starting from A to Z. And to this left and right and bottom you can see these are shelf. So there are 3 shelves. Now this right shelf is expanded, so you can just double click on this little double arrow kind of icon to collapse or expand it. If it's expand, you can double click to collapse it, and again you can double click to expand it. You can see in this shelf area already we have a palette called brush palette. You can see that palette here as well. We can bring any palette to the shelf area in the left or right shelf. Okay, let's collapse it, double click on this icon. For the bottom shelf you cannot bring any palette to here, but in this shelf you can bring some tools or options like these icons. You can just bring and put these icons here, okay, for quick access. So let's say you use lot of brushes, you can bring those brushes here to quick access. Okay, I'm going to show you that later in this course. And on this interface you can see some color coding here. This bright yellow means it's active. You can see now GAdd is active. I can click on to activate the GSolve. Just click here, and on the left side you can see some very useful stuff here, and some of the options are grayed out, like these brushes. It's now grayed out because we don't have any object to sculpt on. When I have an object, let's say go to light box and double click on any of this by default object, let's say this dog, double click on it, and now that project is opened. Now you can see it's got activated. Now I can choose brush, different brush from here. There are a lot of brushes, and here I can choose how that brush stroke would be, and I can choose alpha as well. Okay, so I can change the material from here. I can change any different material from here. So the by default material here is on this project is the basic material here. So you can choose different color here. So basically very useful left side options here, and these right side options are also useful. Turn off the perspectivity. Now you can see the perspective destruction is gone, and you can turn off the floor, which is the grid here. You can turn on off that here. So there are so many options here which is useful. Again you can just click on this shelf options. You can see the tool palette is on. You can click on this tool name to collapse it. Again click to expand the options, and you can go to any palette and you can bring that palette to here. Let's say I want this transform palette. Go to transform here and just hold left mouse and drag this icon to here. You can see now I got my transform palette here. So I can again bring all the palettes to this shelf. If you want to get rid of this palette, so let's click on this icon again to get rid of it. And on the interface, you can see on the top we have a see-through option. You can drag this slider to make Zebra's whole interface transparent, and this is very useful when you are working with reference images. You can just make the whole Zebra's interface a little bit transparent so that you can see through the background image. You can work according to the background reference. You can use this thing on that purpose. And here you can see there's an option called menu toggler. You can just click on this to hide the top menu, which is the top palettes. So you can hide that here. If you don't use those things much, you can hide to get a little bit screen space. Okay, now you have some option to change the color scheme as well. So let's just click on this icon, left right icon, to change or cycles different themes for Zebra's interface. So I'm going to use the by default one. Okay, now we have some layouts as well. Layouts means when you click on it, it's going to change the way the tools are arranged on the interface. You can see, you might check all these things. Now you can see with this layout we have some brushes here in this shelf, which is very useful. But in this case I'm going to use the by default one. Let's say you have messed up with these things and you want to get back to the by default. You can go to the menu and go to preference and go to config here and restore standard UI. Click on this, restore standard UI, and it should set to the by default Zebra's interface. In the next lecture we are going to learn navigations inside Zebra's.